Hello, this is the Green Corn Rebellion Show. I'm Gregory Harden II, and today I am here with Arturo Alonso, who is the state representative elect for House District 89 in the Oklahoma House of Representatives. He will also be the youngest member of the state legislature next year, to our knowledge, unless there's someone younger than him running. Even if I win, he will still be the youngest. So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. No, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. Since yeah, I mean, we both had the chance to campaign for our house seats, which I think is super awesome. And I know you're still campaigning, so I would definitely wish you luck.
Thank you. Um, I let's see here. And to be clear, even I want to also be clear with people about the age difference between me and Arturo here. He is a year younger than me, born in 99. I'm born in
Hmm.
98. So we will be, if we both win, we will be the first, to my knowledge, the first people born in the late 90s and to be part of Gen Z in the legislature. Because I don't think there's anyone born after 96 in the legislature currently.
Not that I
So,
can think
yeah.
of.
Yeah, because I think Daniel Pay is born in 95, and Avery
Yeah,
Fricks, I think, is born in 96, but there's no one younger than those two in there. So we
yeah.
would be the youngest, and Avery Fricks is not seeking reelection anyway. So, yeah. So, yeah. Um, Whoa, 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 whoa. Stop what you're doing. Okay. If you like this video and you like the other content on my channel, please hit the like button on this video. Also, go hit subscribe like right now. And also, when you hit subscribe, click the bell so you can get notifications whenever I put out a new video. So, thanks. All right, enjoy the rest of the video. There's no one, I don't think anyone born in the 2000s is running this year.
No, not
For
not this
like,
race. Maybe
for,
maybe
for
next
all,
term.
yeah, I mean, they could because you have to be 21, but to my knowledge, I don't think anyone younger than us is running. But
Yeah.
anyway, enough about our age and how young we are. We're making the old
Right.
people feel bad. First question I have here is, where are you from and where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I when it comes to like where I was born in Boise, Idaho, raised in Mexico
Really?
for about 3 years, and then whenever I was just about to be four, my family decided to move back here to Oklahoma, where we've been living ever since. So I mean, when it comes to the memories I have, I don't really remember too much of whenever I was in Mexico, just a few memories, but
Mhm.
I grew up here in South Oklahoma City, and I've kind of lived in the same area for the majority of my life until I went down to Norman to, attend the University of Oklahoma. But South Oklahoma City would be um, my kind of like the area where I grew up, and that's the area that I'll be representing for the next 2 years in the State House of Representatives, which is super exciting because it's a part of the town, a part of the city that I care a lot about.
All right. Boise, Idaho. That's interesting.
Yeah, kind of random. I don't know how my family ended up in there. Well, I do. We do have a little bit of family up in Boise. So I think my parents were just kind of there for a few years before they had me and my brothers. But
And you're
yeah,
the oldest of your brothers or the
no. So I have an older brother. Well, I guess technically two older brothers, but one of my older brothers is my twin brother, so he's older by 12 minutes. And then I have a little brother. So there's four of us, and I guess I'm one of the middle children.
That's interesting. I didn't know you were a twin. Oh
Yeah, no, I got an
wow.
identical twin brother, and I mean, he helped me campaign a lot. And sometimes I was like, man, should should he just pretend to be me, be in two places at once?
Oh wow. That is kind of scary in politics, I guess, if you have a twin brother who looks exactly like you. And is campaigning for you at the doors. I hope you guys didn't knock on doors at the same time and freak people out like a Shining situation. I'm kidding.
Right? It's like, wait, why the two of them? Yeah.
But yeah, so what did you get your degree in, and what are you currently doing? Are you working a job before you take your job in the legislature?
Yeah, so I got my degree, and I just recently graduated from the University of Oklahoma, OU, this last May. I got my degree in mechanical engineering. And so, I mean, growing up, I was always super interested in space and sciencey things. And especially in college, I really wanted to focus a lot on environmental sustainability. So I did a lot of research within that. But when it comes to what I'm doing now, I've been working hard to try to get a job within engineering, because engineering is not an easy degree field. So I definitely wanted to practice it after I graduated. But I've been, attempting to get a job in engineering. It's just a little tough since a lot of companies or firms don't want to accept someone that isn't able to be there the entire year. And since I'll be a part of the legislature, I am required to work or be in the Capitol, voting on bills, passing bills, all that for about 4 months out of the year. So that's been the challenge. Right now, I'm kind of just focusing a lot on community organizing since I'm kind of just barely getting involved into this political world. So I really want to make sure I'm setting myself up for success. So I'm meeting with people and seeing what I can do within my community as well as within the legislature. So right now I'm really focusing a lot on learning. And that's why it's been kind of a challenge for me. Like, I know I've been debating whether I should continue pursuing a full-time engineering role, since typically if I do engineering, it's going to be full-time, and I would kind of have less flexibility with just preparing myself for the legislature. So I've been kind of leaning towards getting more of a role that gives me the flexibility to prepare and to have meetings and attend events right now that isn't so focused, on engineering. So I've considered kind of doing like my own type of tutoring since I still want to stay relevant within engineering. And I think that's what I'm going to do, kind of be more of a tutor since I can kind of set my hours while I kind of still continue to look for something that can still help me practice my engineering, but give me the flexibility to prepare for the legislature as well.
Okay, so I have a suggestion for you, or a couple of suggestions actually. I would apply to become a substitute teacher in Oklahoma City public schools because it doesn't require that you have to do it like every week or have a set schedule. It's kind of you have the jobs and then you can pick what days you're able to do it. And that way you could be active in the community and still be able to have time to do stuff. So there's that. And I would also say, well, I would say do something that might involve being involved in a robotics team. But if I'm not mistaken, most of the robotics stuff happens during the time when the legislature is in session.
And maybe I can start my own robotics organization because
So
I
what?
do have a big interest in robotics.
Yeah, because it like you could mentor a robotics team, and but most of that is during session because
Mhm.
I think the one of the regionals would be in what's it called, in March anyway, before spring break or after spring break. But I would look into substitute teaching because that's something you could do, and it's something that is a value that, I mean, while it might not have to do with engineering necessarily, it's still something you could do and also be able to have some flexibility with your time.
I appreciate the suggestion, and that's something I've thought about a little bit. And I think I'm definitely going to look into it more now. Because I was like, man, like maybe I could be some kind of teacher's assistant. Um, but I know like because I am already a state employee, I think I was asking around and they're like, oh, there might be some issues because of this or that. But I'm definitely going to look into substitute teaching. Yeah, because I do. One of the reasons why I'm becoming a tutor is because I do enjoy kind of interacting with kids and making sure I'm contributing to their knowledge. Since I know maybe you'll ask me later on, but when it comes to my platform, I really want to focus on engaging the youth, especially when it comes to civic engagement. That's what kind of inspired my slogan, "The future is ours," because the future is in the young people.
Yeah, that's true. So what made you run for the seat?
Yeah, so at the beginning of this year, it's definitely not something I really had in mind. At the beginning of the year, I already had a job lined up to be an engineer down in Austin, Texas. Because before I already had like a 5-year plan set out. I was gonna work. I had a job at Samsung, so I was gonna work for them for 2 to 3 years, then go to grad school to pursue. It was a combination of robotics and sustainability, and my goal was to. I guess one of my goals in life is to create either a company or be a part of a company that focuses on green robotics.
Yeah.
Because in college I did a lot of research within environmental sustainability. I was like, man, like I wonder if there's any device that's already made that can like automate this research task. And there wasn't. So I was like, oh, maybe I can be a part of those, that team. But at the beginning of the year, I was reached out to by some community leaders that I had kind of involved myself with earlier throughout college as well as in high school, because growing up, I've kind of always wanted to contribute to my community in different ways, since I know it's a community that is lacking in resources, and there's a lot of things that aren't really accessible because my community has a high population of Latino families. And I know growing up, I was like, man, like, where are all the resources at? I don't know. So I really wanted to contribute to that. And I think in that, I just met a lot of people that I didn't really know what, it's kind of like a full circle, since the people I would involve myself with either their campaigns or they had a volunteering event going on. They were the same people that kind of reached out to me. And they were, since they, I guess, had kept in touch. We had kept in touch, and they knew I was involved throughout college, and I did care a lot about my community. So they gave me the opportunity to run with their support. And it took me about half a month to decide whether I wanted to do it or not, since I already had, my plan set out. And I was like, oh man, this is something I never even thought about. But because one of my big goals, another one of my goals is to always give back and contribute in some way. Before I thought I could only do it as an engineer. But then I thought about it and I was like, oh man, like this can give me the platform to really contribute to my community within the political realm. And I never really saw myself as a politician, but I am a people person, and I do like to like meet people and kind of just be able to contribute to their lives in different ways. And like I said before, it was going to be through engineering, but now I feel like I have the potential to do it with engineering as well as through the legislature, which is super exciting. And like I said, I care a lot about my community and the place I grew up, and I want to make sure that they have someone that they can go to for that support. And I know, like I said, my community is one that hasn't always had that representation, because having grown up in the community, being bilingual, being someone that understands a lot of those issues, I feel like even though, I'm not a politician, I can really develop myself to contribute to my community.
All right.
Yeah,
I
but it was
like
a tough
that.
decision. I'm not gonna lie, because it was like, man,
Yeah,
like,
because
I feel like I'm jumping in these
yeah,
unknown waters.
because a 5-year plan already planned out. That's something to, decide to not do in order to do something else that at the time you weren't even sure if you were going to even, win the seat or
Exactly. Yeah.
like that. It's definitely a gamble, and I feel that because, for myself, I knew I wanted to run for the seat, but it was something I thought about doing later in life, and not later in life as in like when I'm like 40 or something, but like a few more cycles, right? But then
I get a little
I
more
decided,
experience, right?
yeah, and then I decided to go ahead and do it this time, and I so I definitely relate to that whole thinking about that and having to gamble on your life essentially because you really don't know what's gonna happen.
Oh man. No, and
But
you're completely right. It is a gamble because I was like, man, like, because I did have, job security, financial security, all that. And then I guess giving that up for something that's not guaranteed, because it's something that I would have to put a lot of effort to win. And then after that, say I did win, I would, and I guess I did win. I'm still having to put even more effort now because now's whenever the job really starts.
yeah,
Um, which is which I think is I always think back, I was like, man, like, so how would I feel about my decision to, and it's always, I always feel super good about it, and I'm really glad I did it. um because I feel like before I was in a way limiting myself to just contribute to society as an engineer, but now I feel like I can do it in many different ways. But it's exciting. I don't know, especially, I mean, similarly to you, just being young. And I feel like it really, and I'm sure you might be experiencing this now as well, just like the amount of growth you have just in having conversations with people, especially voters, because it's about lots of times sensitive topics, things that, issues that are important to them, ways to try to, kind of contribute to their lives and how they work and function. So it's definitely really fulfilling. And I know that's something I wouldn't have experienced if I hadn't decided to do it.
yeah. So let's see. On your platform, you say you want to improve public education. What are some ways in which you plan on doing that?
Yeah. So, I mean, growing up, I definitely experienced a lot of, I guess, lacking resources within the schools I attended, since a lot of the schools had, high populations of lower income, marginalized communities. So there was, and then lots of times you didn't. I remember not really seeing a lot of people like myself pursuing college or doing something more than just, graduating and then working. So for a while, it was hard for me to see myself doing the same thing. And it wasn't until I started, seeking different opportunities that, I kind of started, okay, like feeling more confident in myself. So I really want to make sure that students have the tools they need to succeed within education, because education is super important. I always think about the Nelson Mandela quote that education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. Maybe I butchered it, I hope not, but
Yeah.
I think a lot about that, and I'm like, man, like we need to equip, especially you know the younger community with the tools they need to succeed, and thrive and grow, because a lot of the people I surrounded myself were first generation high school graduates and eventually first generation college graduates. Um, and there is lacking resources. So I know when it comes to what I hope to do, I hope to, because right now we're also seeing a bit of a teacher shortage, due to many reasons, lack of adequate teacher pay, creating laws that just make it hard to teach freely. Um, so I think being able to increase teacher pay is one of my goals. I know sometimes it can be tough, given the state, in which we live in, that tends to be kind of conservative and doesn't value education the way it should. But I know that's one area I hope to kind of contribute to and improve, making sure that teachers are getting paid enough, since even in college, since I just recently graduated, a lot of my friends are teachers and getting into education, but they feel discouraged to pursue education in Oklahoma because the pay isn't enough. And I guess in that sense, also incentivizing ways for teachers, I mean, talented teachers to stay in Oklahoma, whether it be, I know right now we do have some kind of programs in place that if you stay in Oklahoma, teaching a certain type of school, they pay for your student debt. So finding creative ways to make sure we retain quality teachers, um, and then also just increasing educational funding. I know right now there's kind of like a school bond issue going on where they're gonna allocate nearly $1 billion to Oklahoma City public schools. And these are schools that, I mean, they accept everyone. So I think it's important to make sure we have those schools with quality facilities, enough space. Since a lot of the schools in my community, for example, US Grant, Capitol Hill, those are the two biggest ones, and they are over capacity. So I think being able to ensure that those schools have enough space for their students, and making sure that the teachers don't have, huge classes, because that does contribute to less quality education. Um,
Yeah, I've substitute I substitute teach in Oklahoma City public schools, and two of the schools I spent a lot of time at is US Grant and Capitol Hill. So like the overcrowding, or what, I can't remember what the word was that you used, but like over
overpopulated,
yeah,
overcrowded. Yeah,
either one works because
yeah.
it's accurate. Like the classroom sizes are like insane. Like it's huge. I think most of the classes that I have subbed for, all of them have well over 23, 24, almost up towards of 35 students in them. And it's just like that's a lot for a teacher to deal with,
Yeah.
and it's a lot for students themselves to deal with as well, because it's you only have an hour or less than an hour in a class, and then you know 30 people in a class or 25 plus in a class is not a very great learning environment for students. And I don't even think, whenever I was in school at Shawnee, I don't think we had any classes that were that big. They do now, I think, because you know times have changed, and things have gotten worse since we were in high school. But yeah, it's a problem. And then also there's not enough classrooms for the teachers, and teachers aren't able to have their own classroom, so they have to travel to classroom throughout the day. Whenever like that's something I didn't know existed until I subbed at Capitol Hill, and it was like I'm like, whoa, like this is not great. Like something has to happen here. Like it's horrible. But yeah, um, sorry, I feel like I cut you off to
No, you're
let
good. Like
us
you brought
know.
up a lot of really good points, because I mean you got a point. There's a lot of things that are going on right now that don't contribute to good, quality education. Um, and there is something that needs to be done, especially because I mean when it comes to, if you look at the demographics of those students, they're, high populations, like I said, lower income, minority students. I know those schools are predominantly Latino as well.
Yeah.
Uh, and that does kind of contribute to an achievement gap. Um, and I know that's one thing I really want to focus on, especially because, like I said, I care a lot about my community, and I want to make sure I'm doing what I can to contribute to. And one of my main topics, public education.
All right. So um another part of your platform that I really liked is the economic justice platform of increasing the minimum wage, creating paid and family leave, and medical leave, and putting, this is my favorite phrase because I like the way that you phrase this, putting money back into the pockets of working families. Because that's something I try to emphasize with people is like, I'm like, for me, it's most like running is mostly about making sure like workers and working people are getting more money for the work that they're putting into their jobs. Could you talk
Yeah.
about the importance of this, and why it's important to you?
Yeah, and I mean, and there's a reason why I kind of went with economic justice, because there is justice to be made when it comes to this, since, throughout my campaign, since the way I kind of developed a lot of the points that you're mentioning is through campaigning and through kind of talking to people, I realized there was a lot of, working class families that they were required to work, 2, 3 jobs or have just a lot of shifts that don't enable them to, spend quality time with their families. And if they have kids, they're not contributing or they're not as present because, you still have to pay the bills. You still have to make sure there's groceries, you're feeding your family, all that. But it's gotten so much harder. And I remember like just during COVID, I mean, a lot of people weren't able to work, so they weren't able to have some kind of stable income. And that kind of contributed to making sure we do have programs put in place. So when people don't or aren't able to work for whatever reason, they're still getting some money coming in. Um, and I think that's super huge, especially because in my community, most are either mid to low income. So they have to kind of work more. And going back to like, not being able to spend quality time with their families, doing what they want to do and living like more of a quality life because lots of times they kind of have to live to work. I'm like, man, like that's something I really want to kind of I care a lot about as well because I mean I grew up I from a humble home. Both of my parents work blue collar jobs, and they work hard, but lots of times even with the hard work they put in, it's still not enough to make ends meet. And I'm like, man, like it shouldn't be this hard for people that are putting in a lot of hours and a lot of energy, to still not even make it. So I think that's why there's justice. There's like that's why like I kind of worded it with economic justice. Um, yeah, and then whether that be, and I'm still kind of learning how to best approach that through policy, whether it be tax credits. I would love to increase the minimum wage. That is definitely something I would love to see well during my time in legislature. I know that there will be challenges with that, but it's something I think that will ultimately benefit our economy and benefit the working class that and I mean the common people that live in our state. Since when it comes to policy, I think a lot of times, the people that have that money, that have that, power, they're able to contribute to making laws that benefit them more and that take away more from, communities that actually need it and families that actually need it.
Yeah. Yeah, raising the minimum wage has been a huge thing for me too. I think the way that we would be able to get that done is if we get it put to a ballot question for voters to vote on. And the legislature, like, we could author a bill to do that. Because that's how right to work got on the ballot in whatever year that was, 2000, 2001, was the
Yeah.
legislature voted to put it on the ballot. And I feel like we could possibly do that with the minimum wage. At least that's what I would like to have happen whenever I'm elected as well. But that's
Yeah.
because I think it'll be harder for let's see. I don't think any Republicans themselves in the legislature would vote for any type of raise themselves. But if they get away with it by saying, oh, we just put it to the vote of the people, I feel like that's a better compromise that a lot of Republican legislators would be okay with. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a super I think it's a good creative approach. And when you make it, I would love to work with you on that because I think we do I think we would both love to see, increased minimum wage. And that would be I think a good way to approach it. Um,
Yeah, because at least at that point, I feel like because in a lot of other states, specifically more conservative states, whenever a ballot question like raising the minimum wage comes to a vote, it always passes. I don't think there's been one where it didn't pass. Uh, and I think that would be the best way for us to be able to get that done. Just like with marijuana, recreational marijuana, that's going to be on the ballot. I don't know when, but it will be,
I'm
and
pretty
I
sure it's
think
gonna
it'll
be
pass.
this November.
I think so. At least I would like to hope so. And I think so, but we don't know. But I think that when it comes to a vote, that it'll pass. I know
Oh
some
yeah.
people are kind of skeptical about it, and I'm like, no, I think it'll pass because if medical marijuana passed in 2018, with I think I want to say it was like 56% of the vote, something like that.
Yeah.
And that was 4 years ago. I highly doubt people have uh, gone backwards on the idea of legalizing marijuana, even though, of course, recreational and medical are two different things, but still,
Yeah, and I
yeah.
think going back to your point, like with other states, I think it's passed in every state where it has been a state question. So it has a really high chance that it'll pass. And I know I've in the conversations I've had with people, they mentioned like, yeah, people even just that have never voted before, like they just come and show up and vote for the marijuana bill. But now we got like, I guess, convince them to also look at the other parts of the ballot. Like, hey, like vote for all these good candidates as well. So, and typically people that, support, the recreational use of marijuana, they tend to be, kind of like more progressive minded, which I think can help, especially, us being Democratic candidates, help our party out as well.
Yeah, because I think that was the thing about the medical marijuana question. They didn't want to put it on the ballot in the general because in 2018 because they figured it would help Democrats, so they put it in the June primary,
Hmm.
and so therefore, less likely to help one side or one party than another party. But
Yeah.
yeah, um, so you told me before that even though you don't have an opponent in the general, that you're still knocking doors and wanting to bring turnout up in your
Yeah.
district. Could you talk about the importance of bringing turnout up, not just in your district, but also just in the state of Oklahoma in general?
Yeah. I mean, and it goes back to, I mean, just making sure we do have, because I always want to shoot for like, an ideal democracy, and for us to have a good, democracy in our state, we need, you know, voter engagement. We need people to participate in the whole like democratic process, and that requires people to go out and vote, for people that they believe can really represent them well. And I know within my district, it's a district that doesn't have a huge voter turnout. So I know I've been kind of focusing on and trying to understand like why is it that people don't go out and vote? Is it because they're not informed? Is it because the policies that we have just make it hard for them? And I think it's a combination of a lot of things, especially those two. Kind of a lot of the laws they pass don't make it easy for people to vote. And it makes it hard for people to like really participate, even if they want to, because whether it be lacking resources, lack of accessibility. I know a lot of people just don't really know where to go vote, how to access that information. So during my campaign, once I finished knocking on the doors of active voters, I started focusing on registered voters that had never voted before. And I'm like, okay, so like, in addition to trying to get them to vote, I'm gonna see why is that maybe they just haven't voted. And it's just, and lots of it was lack of either resources or information. So I kind of like crafted up a text to be like, okay, like, oh yeah, I'll just text you all this information. And I made it simple and like bilingual since a lot of the people were also like um, um, kind of Spanish speaking Latinos. So kind of just walking them through the process of how to see their sample ballot, where to go vote. But I know then like another difficulty was like, oh, like they knew me because I went to their doors and they understood who I was, but they didn't know anyone else on their ballot, because maybe they're not knocking on doors or they don't have a website. So I know that's kind of an area I'm trying to focus on now. Like, how can I inform voters on who else is on the ballot so that they can make an informed decision? Um, and as I continue knocking on doors to increase voter turnout and have I'm gonna have like weekly, I'm still kind of planning them, but weekly or bi-weekly meetings where I meet people from my community, to just kind of get them to know me, making sure that I'm always accessible and giving them the resources they need to engage politically, but also if there's anything they may need. I know there's a lot of services that the Capitol provides. I'm learning of more services that I can provide them with, just to make sure that any needs are being met. Yeah, I hope that kind of answered your question.
Oh no, it did. Yeah. Another thing that I feel like is an impediment to people being able to at least register to vote is we don't have online voter registration.
Yeah.
Um, it was a bill that was passed back in I want to say 2015, but they haven't actually done it yet. Um, that's also something I'd like to see actually happen soon because I don't I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the idea of carrying around voter registration forms, not just as a candidate, but just in general. I've always done that because I've always been like politically active and wanting to register people to vote. But I also don't like the fact that if I really want to make sure someone registers, I have to make sure that they fill it out right in front of me, and then I take it to the
Notary.
county election board, or no, not even the ballot, just like registering.
Oh
So,
yeah.
yeah, so like you know, instead, I'd like for it to be easier so they can just do it online, and then it's done, as opposed to they get the form and maybe they fill it out or they don't or they fill it out halfway then forget about it, and it's I feel like that does make it harder for people to be able to register because more people would probably register if they knew it was as easy as a website they go to fill out some information, and then a couple of weeks they get a card in the mail saying they're registered.
Yeah, no, and to your point, I mean, people get busy, people, have jobs, school, um, and it's just challenging to be able to register to vote the way that we've currently been doing it, having to get a piece of paper, submit it to a specific area. But if we had that online option, I mean, you could register to vote, I mean, anywhere. And I know whenever it comes to, since I've been working with kind of voter registration organizations just to see what we can do to, register more voters. That'd be so much easier for them as well. So I know that's something like whenever I learned about it, I was like, what? It's like this has been there, but no one's been doing anything about it. Like I know that's one of my goals to kind of get that going, um, because it will definitely benefit a lot. And I know, I mean, we can get younger people registered to vote, um, and people that may not have had the opportunity to register before.
Yeah. um so last question here is, what kind of music do you listen to, or who are your favorite music artists?
Well, I listen to a lot of music. But lately I've been listening to some kind of like more like electric, but like I said, I listen to everything. I grew up kind of listening to a lot of like kind of regional Mexican music because of my parents. Then I started getting more into classic rock, so the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Elton John. Always been into rap, so for a while I kind of really like more old school rap, like Biggie, Tupac, and like Ice Cube.
Yeah.
And then kind of just I'll be listening to anything really. I don't know. I think my friends really contribute a lot to my music taste because like we'll be hanging out and then they'll put on like a really good music. I'm like, damn, like, hey, what song is this? So I'll just save it. But and then a lot of like reggaeton, so a lot of Bad Bunny lately. But a lot of just anything really. Yeah. What kind of music do you listen to?
Mostly heavy metal and rock. Um, and lately a lot of rap, a lot of old school rap lately. So lately it's been Eric B and Rakim and Public Enemy, MC Light, Master Ace, stuff like that, Beastie Boys.
Oh,
That's what I've been listening to a lot lately. My favorite music artist of all time is Eminem.
oh,
Uh,
Eminem's a good one. Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
and let's see. And when it comes to like rock and metal, Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit, Corn, uh, Chevelle, Slipknot, stuff like that.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. I got a friend that's I think y'all would really get along with y'all's music taste. Um, but that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. No, but yeah, well, but thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Where can we find you on social media, and what is your campaign website?
Yeah, so on social media you can definitely look me up, Arturo Alonso, for House District 89. Usually I think all of them are Arturo Alonso or Vote for Alonso. My website's votealonso.com. But I think we're starting to change it to just arturoalonso.com because in addition to it kind of being about me, now that I'm elected, I want to use that website as a resource for people in my community. So including resources. There's our current representative that I kind of like. I look at a lot of their content, and it's a Representative Turner, and they have a lot of really cool stuff on their website that kind of has inspired me to want to do something similar. Because and I guess there's two words that I've always think about with what I'm doing now, and that's educating and empowering people from my community and young communities. Educating and empowering, right? So I just want to make sure that through the different platforms I have, be able to always kind of educate and empower different communities. Um, so that's kind of something I'm working with um, my campaign manager since he's the website guru. But um, so we're gonna start adding more content on there just to provide people with resources.
Mhm. I like that. I like that. I that's something I tried to do a little bit with my campaign website where I have a part where I think I have a link to vote portal, okay, vote
Mhm.
portal, so people can check their registration to see if they live in the district. And I want to, I think I want to eventually add a little bit more resources too on there because even if I don't win, I still want to have that, you know, as I mean, if I don't win, I'll run again. So that's kind of the thought process. But I still want it to be up there to have, a lot of resources for people to look at. Like OK Policy. Uh, I'm pretty sure you know about OK Policy
Oh
Institute.
yeah.
That's the name. Yeah. Like that's an amazing resource for anyone who wants to learn any kind of like statistics about Oklahoma or about certain policies and how they like work and stuff like that. Um, and I feel like having links to that would also be pretty good as well. I don't know if there's any legislators that have links to OK Policy Institute. I know
I
that there
don't know.
are
You know,
some
I don't think so. You might
because
I have to take that idea from you too. That's not a bad
yeah,
idea.
yeah, because I tell people I tell candidates this whenever I give them advice, and I tell other people who are just like interested in like knowledge and finding out things about politics and policy. I always tell them I'm like, okay, Policy Institute is like the place to go. Like that's like you could just spend hours on there just reading stuff and finding out information.
Yeah, no, because I know. So whenever I was, because I'll be doing some like political research, I'll be like, okay, like let's see what there's out there. And OK Policy ones I used a lot, and because they'll also link different resources and like
Yeah.
that they use. I'm like, oh, like then I can start looking at that one, which I think is super awesome. Um, and I guess one of the things I realized whenever I think I was conversating about someone, like, hey, like, what are some good resources that I can look at? And I guess since you know, like, whenever you think about politics, lots of times it just become more, what's it called, polarized. So people
Yeah.
kind of like start tagging certain areas with like, oh, that's liberal woke or super right wing.
Yeah.
And I've heard that people kind of consider sometimes OK policy very like liberal and like I was like what, like to me it's just facts. It's just like actual statistics that make sense because me being an engineer, I know I tend to have more of an analytical mindset.
Yeah.
So I have to, I mean, as an engineer, you have to look at the statistics and the data to back up a decision. And I know that's kind of going to be one of my approaches to policy. Like this is what it looks like in paper. Okay, but okay, like what are like some data that can back this up? And I think OK policy does a really good job at that. And I know I'm gonna continue looking for different resources I can use to make sure whenever I, try to pass legislation or think about a law, I can back it up with actual facts.
Yeah. That's um I know that some people they say that about OK Policy Institute,
Uh,
but they've had, I think they've had like quotes and stuff, and they've had input from Republican legislators before on certain things. It is a real, and it's not bipartisan, but it is a real like nonpartisan,
oh yeah,
objective look at certain things that have to do with the state and the policy. It's I understand how some people do view it that way because the analysis will tend to favor or tend to not favor
like their own
the
agendas or
yeah, or like
you
the
know,
most right wing of policies out there. But at the end of the day, I do think that it's a very neutral resource when it comes to looking at stuff like that. But yeah.
yeah. No, I think you're completely right. So
Well,
something I'll be
thank
continuing to use for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on, man. And I would say good luck to you, but you've already won. But good luck to you in the legislature, and hopefully I'll be joining you.
Hey, hopefully, no, and best of luck to you. And I think whenever I get the chance, I'm gonna make sure to follow all your social medias just in case you have any volunteering events. Because I know one of my goals right now, in addition to continuing to campaign for increasing voter turnout in my area, is just helping good candidates win. So, oh.